Michael Loynd, Loynd.
Best title to use for you with the commission?
Yeah, chairman of the sports commission. That's great.
And then what's the other title that you have when it comes to the Olympic Historian Committee? What is that?
So yeah, it's the International Society of Olympic Historians. So I am a member of that. It's one of those things. It was started by a physician here, who was a part, not in St. Louis, in the United States, who was part of the Olympic movement and just felt that there should be a body of historians who are a part of it, and that's how he began it. And after writing the book, we were kind of talking, and they invited me on. So that's how I'm on that board.
Tell me about the book.
So the book it's called The Watermen, and MEN, and it's about Charles Daniels and the history of the United States swimming and how it started, which I had no idea about personally. In 1904, which is when we had our Olympics, no one swam in the United States. Again, there was probably 600 registered swimmers in the entire country, only about a dozen year-round pools. No one swam, and he was the person who put it on his back and made the U.S. swimming what it is today. And if you think about it, it's the greatest legacy in Olympic sports. We've won more gold medals than the next 11 countries combined, which just shows the gravitas of it. And this is the guy who made it happen and invented the freestyle stroke, which is exciting.
Tell me more about Charlie's background here in St. Louis, and then of course just him as a human being.
So he was here in 1904 Olympics. This was his first time in St. Louis. He represented the New York Athletic Club during those Olympics. All the teams represented their athletic clubs. It wasn't until I think it was 1908 in London when they actually had their USA and stuff like that. So he was here. He won our first gold medal. He won 5 medals here. Just amazing feat. He broke the English world record, which was astounding. Nobody had beaten them in 75 years, and it got their attention, and it set up for a great drama at the 1908 Olympics. In fact, he was so good at turning, that's how he kept beating the English swimmers, they said, that they put in a 100-meter pool for the Olympics, so he couldn't turn, which is just incredible. If you see this pool, it's ridiculous. I mean, all Olympic pools these days are 50 meters, so they built a 100-meter pool. And yeah.
I was going to say, where'd they swim in St. Louis specifically?
So they swam, it's now, I think, the Presbyterian Church across from Forest Park on Skinker, right at the corner of WashU. And that's kind of where the big Ferris wheel was at the time.
And let's talk about what it's like for you to watch swimming in Paris now. I get emotional even when it's the qualifiers, the heats, because It just gets so exciting in that last 50 meters, considering X, Y, and Z race. What's it like for you when you watch those swimming?
Well, it's so exciting. So through the book, I was actually able to talk to all these wonderful legends like Mark Spitz and Rowdy Gaines and a bunch of others who were just delightful people. And they kind of filled me in on all this stuff. I realized I was a bad swimmer. I always liked to swim growing up, but other than swimming like 50 meters, I'm not a good breather and everything like that. So I kind of learned a few things in the process. But just the emotional stories, like any good sports stories like this book, it's not about sports, right? It's about the human condition. It's about overcoming obstacles and everything like that. So the beautiful thing about swimming in the Olympics and everything like that, they do such a wonderful job just doing the backstory on these athletes and what they had to overcome to get there. It takes so much to get to on the Olympic stage, and it just that resonates. And my kids and my wife will tell you I cry. I'll cry at a big moment like that. I will cry watching Rocky, Miracle, all that stuff. Same spot every time. I'm in tears. I don't care. I enjoy it. I just love the emotion of it.
And let's talk about you heading to Paris. What is that travel schedule looking like?
So I leave Thursday morning. So excited. Going to be there for 4 full days. We're going to go see beach volleyball and women's soccer, and going to see swimming, obviously. So see Katie Ledecky swim the 800 meter and hopefully tie Michael Phelps' record for four golds and 4 Olympics in the same event, and we'll see track and field the next day. So, and hopefully get to interact with some of the Olympians and some of the players over there. So it'll be great.
Absolutely. Just so I know what I'm talking about, are you flying out of Lambert, flying out of Chicago?
I am flying out of Lambert. I think Lambert to Charlotte to Paris.
Well, look at you.
Yeah.
And let's talk a little bit more about when it comes to your position having a seat with the World Union of Olympic Cities. What is that?
So it's a every Olympic city. So going back to Athens in 1896, has a spot on the World Union of Olympic Cities, and so there's 2 delegates from every city, and we meet once a year. Every other year it's in Lausanne, which is Olympic headquarters. That's where they're based in Switzerland. And then the subsequent years are typically in an Olympic venue. So last year was Paris, the lead up to Paris. A couple years before that was Tokyo, the lead up to Tokyo. So that's usually how they do it. We meet once a year, and it's a great time just to interact with other people involved in sports on the international stage, and just talk about what's going on in their countries, what's going on in sports, what's going on with the Olympics. And you kind of get a barometer and of how our city's doing in relation to all that stuff. So it's great.
Who is the other delegate besides you?
So it comes from the St. Louis Sports Commission. So Frank Viverito and myself, and now it's Mark Schreiber and myself.
Wow. So Mark's going to go with you for Paris, or?
Mark will go with me to Lausanne in November.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's later November. You and Mark.
And Frank might come along too.
Perhaps. But so is there anything in Paris that you're doing over the next, say, week that has to do with this World Union, or not really?
I will meet with some of the World Union leaders over there. So that's a good thing. It is tied in with the IOC. So I'll talk with some of the IOC people over there as well, which is the International Olympic Committee, which are the ones that put on the games and decide who gets the next games, and so all that is wonderful.
Anything in particular you guys are going to talk about, since you have such that World Union vibe, things in Paris?
Well, we'll probably, we'll check out everything that's going on in Paris, what they're doing well. It looks like a very innovative games with just the openness of the opening ceremony all over the city, which is fantastic. And just comparing notes that way. I'm sure we'll talk about upcoming Olympic venues, how the IOC is just changing and how they look at cities who they give the Olympics to. They're also starting to do where they have 2 cities hosting one game. So Winter Olympics next go round is in Milan, and I think it's Cortina in Italy, which is, they're both about like 5-6 hours away. So there's different trends that they're doing, and they're promoting. They want to promote reusing all these venues, so they don't just sit there like eyesores, which unfortunately happened with Rio and some of the other games. So stability is a big thing, and so we're just excited. It's exciting to talk about that.
Any kind of conversations you've been having with some of the other delegates, leaders with the Olympics Committee when it comes to Los Angeles, things that we can even think about in 2028?
So interestingly enough, they don't like to talk about the next Summer Olympics until the latest current Summer Olympics is finished. So I think once Paris finishes up, then it'll start really revving up in Los Angeles. We'd love to get the torch back here. We'd love to have conversations with them as far as if there's any chance to get a potential prelim contest or something like that in St. Louis. But all that is ongoing, and we've had some conversations with them about that. So hopefully it continues. But again, we'd really love to get the torch back through here.
And what does it mean to you to be part of that World Union, considering we have such an original history when it comes to 1904 and our Olympics?
Well, again, they say, once an Olympic city, always an Olympic city. And there's no bigger international symbol than those Olympic rings. And it really makes you, St. Louis is an international city. We're part of this Olympic movement. Big part, America's first Olympic city. The gold medal was born here, gold, silver, bronze. That did not start until St. Louis. So we have a lot of firsts here. We have a lot of pride we should have a lot of pride in those Olympics. And again, it just is an ongoing movement, and we're part of that. So it's not just like history. We're trying to bring Olympic trials here. We're trying to continue to be part of those movements. We have an Olympic Day celebration every year at WashU's Olympic Stadium, and Jackie Joyner-Kersee is always so kind to lead the charge there. And again, just all these things to be proud of coming from St. Louis.
And you are my historian, obviously, when it comes to the Olympics. Any fun facts when it comes to golf? We were at Glen Echo yesterday, but uniqueness, fun facts you think people in St. Louis might not know, especially when it comes to the 1904 golfing or 1900 Paris?
Well, again, Paris was the first time golfing appeared in 1900. And one thing about those Paris Olympics is it was all retroactive events. So what I mean is they didn't decide what events were Olympic until I think it was the 1960s. So they went back because the games were kind of a mess, to be honest with you. So St. Louis golfing was billed as an Olympic golfing event. And we had, I think a Canadian is the one who won it. But we did have a good team, and our Olympic team did win a medal, so that was good.
Very exciting. And let's talk about the other hat that you wear when it comes to Olympic historian and that committee. Tell me more about what that committee is, how many people are on it, things of that nature.
At the Olympic Historian, so it's the International Society of Olympic Historians. There are, I don't know how many people are. There are probably about 100 people on it. They have a meeting every year. Last year was in Colorado Springs, which is where our USOPC is headquartered. And it's usually around the country. The last meeting I went was a couple years ago, and that was actually at the founder of the Olympic movement, Pierre de Coubertin's estate and his family's home. So that was kind of special.
What do you wish more people knew about the history of St. Louis, being on that committee, things that you've noticed, considering you get to have all of this in your backyard and also be part of such an upper echelon of American historian and international historians as well?
Well, I think because we were in earlier games, again, they didn't even have the Olympic rings at that point. There was no torch relay at that time. There was no Olympic cauldron that was put on fire. But one of the things that we did, again, is start the gold, silver, bronze medal. We were America's first Olympics, so we really introduced it to the United States. If you think about it, back then there was no TV, there was no radio. People would read little clips about the Olympic Games in Paris in 1900, but it wasn't really emphasized because we didn't really have reporters over there, so it was secondhand reports. So our Olympics here in St. Louis was the first time the United States really got to see the Olympics, embrace the Olympics, and that's really what started the movement and got people excited about it. Because before us, coming out of Paris, it was really on life support. And it was the 1904 Olympics that really kind of revved it back up again.
What was attendance like in St. Louis? Did people come walk around like what you're going to do when it comes to going and watching swimming?
Well, again, it was more of a curious oddity at the time. Sports was really just in its infancy. Sports didn't really start until after the Civil War because people started having leisure time. And once they started having leisure time, baseball became a thing, amateur athletics became a thing. And so this was an exposure to amateur athletics, this international event, which if you think about it back then, there really wasn't international travel. You had to be wealthy to do it. It took a long time to do it. So having this big international contest was interesting. And people came. The swimming actually drew one of the biggest crowds, surprisingly. And it was a result of, there was a General Slocum steamship in New York that went down on fire with 1,000 women and children, and they all pretty much died because they didn't know how to swim. And all they had to do was swim 50 yards to the shore, but they all drowned and perished. So after that, people said, well, we really should learn how to swim here, and everybody was interested. So a lot of people showed up.
More than enough questions for me, Michael. Anything you want to add, Mark, or ask?
If they came to you today, IOC said, you know what, we want to hold the Olympics in St. Louis. Is that possible today? We'd have to build a lot. And quite financially, it's gotten tough for cities to compete for the Olympics.
It is. So here would be my answer on that. First of all, the IOC wouldn't come to us. We'd have to come to them.
Right.
But we do have access to the IOC. We could have that conversation.
Right.
You'd have to go to the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee first to get their blessing to go forward with it.
Right. Approach
the IOC, have a plan in place. There are a lot of dollars involved with these kind of events, as you can imagine. We do have some good venues here, surprisingly, that a lot more than some other cities. But I think realistically, if we were ever to do it, it would make sense to partner with another city and go forward.
The next was Chicago, if we could ever agree.
Yeah, which historically would be kind of funny because we stole the Olympics from Chicago in 1904, so that would kind of be full circle. But yeah, and really the next chance of an Olympics in the United States, because Salt Lake just got the winter ones, would be 2040 or 2044. So it's down the road.
Right, and there's I don't know, it just seems like there would be a lot of venue. You'd have to build a a track field. I don't think we have anything that qualifies as a track field, but we have
We-
a diving area with.
We wouldn't have a good track venue. We'd have you could do swimming in the dome. Like, let's just say it happened today. You could do swimming in the dome. You could do gymnastics in the Enterprise Center.
Yeah.
You know, and there's other venues that we have.
Soccer could be, well, you need more than one field.
And the soccer, I mean, the reason why St. Louis isn't getting the World Cup is because you need a soccer stadium that holds, I think, at least 70,000 people, which our soccer stadium does not. That's why it's in Kansas City and Arrowhead.
45 or 50, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's pretty significant. I don't know the exact number, but it's more than 20,000. I could tell you that for the main gold medal rounds and stuff like
Right.
that, for sure.
Well,
For sure. So you never know. You never know.
Good question.
that's
Mark.
interesting. And did they have the was the ice cream cone at the was it at the Olympics? Because everybody says it was from the World's Fair.
Yeah, there was actually a couple things at the 1904 World's Fair that's interesting. So it was the first time that all these culinary American specialties came in one location, where people all over the United States, you know, came to St. Louis and were able to taste these things. Dr. Pepper, which, you know, was locally in other places. So there was like Dr. Pepper, there was the ice cream cone, the hot dog, right? All this stuff existed before, but it was the first time America as a whole played here. The other interesting thing that people don't realize is at the 1904 Olympics, Scott Joplin was living in St. Louis, and he was playing ragtime. And that was the first American pop music that we had. Before then, it was all European concertos, Mozart, Philip Sousa's big marching band music was just starting. But Scott Joplin really introduced the first purely American pop music. And that, from everything sprang from that. Jazz, blues, you know it. And that started in St. Louis.
Did the Olympics and the World's Fair run at the same time?
They did. So the World's Fair built that. You know, the stadium was part of the World's Fair state. You know, they had it. Put it this way: they had an athletic exhibition because, again, athletics were kind of new. So they were showing all these different athletic contests and everything like that, and the Olympics were one of them. So they were spread out throughout the World's Fair.
That's interesting.
So cool.
I imagine no skateboarding.
No skateboarding, but they did have tug of war, which I would love to see come back.